What's up, guys? Welcome back to Entertainment Hub. Up next on our Urban Legends series is Ohio. Today we are going to be going over the top 10 urban legends in Ohio. If you'd like a part 2 to this video, leave a comment below and tell me if you've ever been to one of these locations and what was your experience like. Don't forget to like and subscribe for new videos daily. Number 10. Cincinnati Music Hall. The music hall was built on the spot where an insane asylum for the mentally ill, Commerce Lunatic Hospital, and a hospital for the diseased, called by the locals the Pest House, once existed. Hundreds of people who died in the insane asylum and the Pest House were buried in mass graves in a pauper cemetery, which never got moved to another cemetery. When the first music hall was built right on top of it, which is really a bad idea. What were they thinking? Every time there were renovations and building expansions made, more bones were disturbed and are unearthed. Some of the manifestations, day and night maintenance workers, volunteers, audience and group members, and security guards are treated to paranormal occurrences. Here are some of the stories told by these workers. Angry whispering from an unseen presence in the elevator, the real sense of being followed and watched by an unseen presence and shadowy figures. Been entertained by a lovely female voice in the building when no one living was there. Following the sound of laughter, workers followed the sound and found that the music hall ballroom, there were apparitions of men and women dancing around the room in formal 1800s dress. During performances, full-formed entities of men and women dressed in the finery of the decades ago have been known to join the living from the night's performance in the music hall. Number 9. Franklin Castle, Cleveland, Ohio. For years, tales were told of doors that exploded off their hinges, lights that spun around on their own, electrical currents that behaved erratically, the inexplicable sounds of babies crying, and even a woman in black who had been spotted staring forlornly from a small window in the front tower room. According to local tales, there have always been ghosts in this house, and this should come to no surprise considering the dark deeds, murders, and diabolical events that have been linked to this place. Number 8. Melonheads Kirtland, Ohio. A mysterious man known as Dr. Crow lived in a secluded house on Windsor Road in Kirtland, Ohio, an eastern suburb of Cleveland. Some say he was married and that his wife was unable to have children. Other accounts say that the Crows had a child who suffered from hydrocephalus, water on the brain, which caused the youngster to be severely disfigured. Dr. Crow may not have been a real doctor, or he may have been stripped of his medical license, but that didn't stop him from his work. He was said to be the guardian of a number of orphan children, or perhaps he was the staff physician. Although there are no records of any orphanage ever being in the area, in either case, the children became the victims of his macabre medical practice. Possibly in an attempt to help his own child, or maybe in some sort of quest for a cure, Dr. Crow performed experiments on the children, horrific, painful experiments, including injecting fluid into their heads. The repeated treatments caused the malformations that gave the children their terrifying appearance. The Melonheads, as they were called, were docile, helpless victims of a madman's strange fascinations. Years passed and Dr. Crow's insanity raged. The escalating evil spilled out from doctor to patient. The children, those who survived, went mad. In an unexpected act of revolt, the Melonheads attacked Crow, taking vengeance in the most violent manner. The doctor died at the hands of his children, who were now free of collective compatibility. The Melonheads set fire to the doctor's house and laboratory, destroying any and all records of the non-sanctioned experiments and deplorable abuse. They were free, but where could they go? The only home they had ever known was gone, as was the adult they had ever dealt with. The Melonheads took to the woods, hiding together, scared, angry, seeking shelter and food wherever they could find it. They had no ability or desire to communicate with the outside world. Once again, they were alone. The Melonheads had been spotted near the alleged site of the Crow residence for decades. Windsor Road is a hotspot for the legendary trippers and paranormal investigators. Teenagers trek to the Kirtland area hoping to catch a glimpse of the monstrous beings. They're described as small, humanoid creatures with extremely large, misshapen heads. They are often hairless with deformed limbs, razor-like teeth, and glowing red eyes. Truly a horrific sight to behold, if you ever catch a glimpse of them. Number 7. Loveland Frogmen, Ohio. The legend of the Loveland Frogmen begins in the early summer of 1955. The exact date is a matter of speculation, but most reports place it in sometime in May. Like any good legend involving monsters, this encounter is typically told in 3 similar but slightly different versions. The first states that an unnamed businessman saw 3 disturbing creatures gathered by the side of the road. He stated that they were 3 to 4 feet tall and covered with a leathery skin. The creatures were described as standing erect, bipedal, and having a head-shaped face of frogs. He also stated that the webbed hands and feet and deep wrinkles on their heads. They appeared to be totally hairless. Other versions have the same description of these creatures, but one places them sitting on a bridge and another places them under a bridge. Since this first account does not give an exact location or road, it's difficult to confirm which specific bridge the reports are meant to describe. The table is further complicated by local information that puts the man entering or exiting Branch Hill, a community bordering the southern end of Loveland. It is worth noting that most of the side roads leading to and from Loveland, specifically the bridge areas, are not well lit. Moving forward in time, the next encounter with the Loveland Frogman gives us the exact date, time, location, and a seemingly credible witness. On March 3rd, 1972, at 1 a.m., police officer Ray Shockey was traveling on Riverside Drive heading into Loveland. The police officer was traveling cautiously due to inclement weather, described as icy roads. When he saw an animal on the side of the road, the creature scurried across the road, and the officer stated that he slammed on his brakes to keep from hitting it. Once stopped, the officer had the creature fully illuminated in his headlights. He went on to describe that the creature was crouching like a frog. Then the creature went on to stand erect, bipedal, and stared directly at the officer. Finally, it turned and it climbed over a guardrail down into a little Miami river. Again, the creature is described as being 3 to 4 feet tall, 50 to 75 pounds, with leathery skin and resembling a frog or a lizard. Further investigation by other officers found that the guardrail had distinct abrasions exactly where it was reported that the animal crawled over the metal barrier. Number 6. The Grassman, Ohio. For almost 150 years, Ohio residents have witnessed a creature called the Grassman, lurking about rural farms and fields. The Grassman is a monster alleged to inhabit Ohio and western Pennsylvania, and looking back at reports, it is almost certainly a Sasquatch. The first sightings occurred in 1869, where witnesses described it as a large, hairy, bipedal creature, up to 9 feet tall. The beast allegedly eats wheat and other tall grasses, hence the name. But this is a food source we would expect an omnivore like Bigfoot to take advantage of, if given the chance. Some researchers theorize that the Bigfoot population in more agricultural areas of Ohio may have adapted to consuming cereal crops. This would make sense, as planted crops would provide an easy source of food for an enterprising Sasquatch. The Grassman has been reported to share many characteristics similar to Bigfoot, but the grass-eating thing is not the only difference. For instance, the Grassman has also been spotted in groups, where most Bigfoot sightings are of a single individual. And like the skunk ape in the south, the Grassman is reported to give off a strong odor, but there are traditional Bigfoot reports from the state as well. If Bigfoot is as abundant in Ohio as many experts believe, we have to assume it's not because of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and it's the state's strong college football tradition. Bigfoot needs food, water, and shelter, as well as a certain amount of security from us meddling humans. Even a creature as large as Sasquatch can't find such things in Ohio. And the history of region makes the state even more Bigfoot friendly. Number 5. Hope Furnace, Lake Hope State Park, Ohio. Hope Furnace was founded in 1854 by Colonel Putnam and some others. Hope Furnace may have originally been called Sand Furnace, since there were two large stones in front of the furnace that read Big Sand Furnace, built by W.H. Wilson. The furnace remained in operation until 1875, producing some of the finest iron in the world in its day. Fueled by coal from nearby Moonville, Hope Furnace also manufactured various pieces of weaponry during the Civil War. On its best day, the furnace could produce up to 15 tons of cast iron and operated 24 hours a day. But shortly after the Civil War came to an end, so did Hope Furnace. But some say that one of the workers had never left. Enter the legend of Hope Furnace. During the furnace operating days, watchmen were employed to oversee the furnace at night, to tend to the fires since the furnace was a 24-hour operation. The watchmen used lanterns to guide them along the rounds, which sometimes took them to the top of the furnace. One stormy night, a bright bolt of lightning temporarily blinded one of the watchmen, and he was walking along the top of the furnace. Not being able to see where he was going, the watchman fell into the furnace. The bubbling ore quickly melted his body away. It is said that on a stormy night, a dark figure carrying a lantern can be seen walking around the top of the furnace until lightning strikes close by, at which time the figure disappears. Number 4. Lima Tuberculosis Hospital, Ohio. Buildings like this always seem to carry such a dark history when forgotten, giving off strange, silent whispers of a past life full of death. As we emerged from the slight overgrowth which had been mostly grayed out by cold winter winds, we stood at the curve of the cracked and crumbled driveway previously the main drive into hospital grounds, where we were greeted by the large decaying brick structure standing before us. Dirt piles have been put up against each entrance, seemingly to keep people away from entering. As we travel up and down through each hallway, you could see time literally peeling away at the building walls. Each floor sits open to the outside, due to scrappers and vandals removing every last window. The bright side is that summer months must provide a nice breeze blowing through, and even if you feel like swimming, there is also a makeshift diving board residing at the edge of the second-story floor, where an entire center room has fallen into the basement, allowing for a swim-through of a wonderful pool of rusty nails, rotten wood, and crumbled brick. Number 3. Legend of Crybaby Bridge, Ohio. Windsor Road in Kirtland cuts through the heart of Melonhead country. Drive beyond this bridge on the dirt road and you will soon find yourself at a dead end. Look closely and you will see a foot trail that continues beyond the dead end and into the deep, dark woods. In those woods along that trail, people say lies the ruins of the original Melonhead homestead. But if a late night hike is not your cup of tea, stick to the bridge. Legend says that if you park your car on this bridge at night and turn off your engine, you will soon hear the screams of small children. Are they the voices of the children who drowned in the waters rushing below the bridge? Or are they the screams of the poor Melonhead children who were burned alive in the orphanage fire near this bridge? However, I suspect that the timing of one's trip to the bridge has nothing to do with the sounds you may hear. This area is heavily populated with wildlife, and the sound of the water distorted by the acoustics of this deep ravine can sound, well, unnatural. Number 2. Gore Orphanage, Ohio. It is said that the Gore Orphanage was in operation sometime in the 1800s. A mysterious fire started in the building that quickly engulfed the entire structure. Lining up all the usual suspects from all the different versions, the likely cause of the fire was one of the following. Old Man Gore, the owner of the orphanage, who was either attempting to collect some sort of insurance money or just simply hated children. A disgruntled male employee. While he was never named, the shady character had some sort of beef with the orphanage owner, Mr. Gore, who in this version loves children, and decided to exact his revenge. Unknown crazy man. Again, this figure is never named. All that is ever told about him was that he lived in the woods surrounding the orphanage, and he hated all the noise that the kids made. An accident. The most common version of the accident story has one of the orphans accidentally knocking over a lantern. In another version, the lantern is kicked over in the nearby barn, but the fire quickly spreads to the main building of the orphanage. Regardless of how the fire started, the results were catastrophic. Presumably, none of the orphans were able to escape the blaze and all perished in the aftermath. Authorities took away Mr. Gore's license and refused to allow replacement orphanage to be constructed on the site. Nearby townspeople wanted nothing more than to quickly forget the tragedy and simply razed what remained of the burned out shell of the orphanage, and allowed nature to take its course and reclaim the land. Out of sight and out of mind, but such a tragic event isn't going to fade easily. And in this case, the tragic fire somehow left a stain upon the area. Locals began whispering that if you ventured out to the remaining ruins of the Gore Orphanage at night, you would see the ghostly shapes of the dead orphans running and playing in the woods. Sometimes the children appeared to be on fire and yelling and screaming like, "Help me," as the foul stench of burning flesh filled the air. Other late-night visitors reported seeing bright lights swirling and weaving through the woods, which they took to be the ghosts of the dead children. And those who believed the orphanage fire had been intentionally set sometimes felt the spirit of the guilty party makes an appearance at the site in the form of a dark, shadowy shape lurking near the foundation remains. A final occurrence at the orphanage site was people who parked and left their cars near the remains would find it covered with tiny handprints when they returned. In such an isolated area, anyone else coming into the area would quickly be discovered. The only explanation was that the ghosts of the orphans were attempting to physically push the car. Number 1. Helltown, Ohio. Helltown is the nickname given to a former town that used to be known as Boston, Ohio. Boston was founded in 1806 and apparently thrived until 1976, when the government bought out most of the town, and the townspeople were evicted from their homes. There were plans for it to be turned into a national park. However, none of these plans actually happened, and the houses remained standing, boarded up. Some stood for years until they were finally demolished. A lot of legends circulate about the former town Boston, Ohio, commonly known to Summit County residents as Helltown. And although I don't actually know if these legends are based on truth, they are pretty creepy. One legend about Helltown is Stanford Road, a steep hill and sharp drop-off on the road, leading to a barricaded dead end, which people call the end of the world. The legend says that if you're parked there too long, you will meet your gruesome fate at the hands of the many freaks supposedly patrolling the grounds. The former town cemetery, Boston Cemetery, is located deep on the grounds. This cemetery is said to be home to a ghostly man, grave robbers, and even a moving tree. Other legends include a giant snake, mutants, Satanists, and escaped mental patients, and even the Ku Klux Klan. Members are said to roam the grounds of Helltown. There is no longer a barricade with a road closed sign at the end of Stanford Road, and all the houses have even been demolished. The only remaining part of Helltown is the paved road which leads up the hill.